You all right?
Music.
Yes. Yeah, you can just like do fist. There you go. That's good. All right. Fist pump. I don't know. Bring it back to your college days or not. I guess maybe not. I just always have to make sure we are live. Otherwise we confirm it. All right. We're good. All right. Spring market. Here we come. Somebody got Zoom bombed. I love it already. Maybe it's Tommy Choi. He's famous for doing that. Welcome everybody. This is our 44th jam session, the big 4-4. Who's Rizzo, right? Anthony Rizzo's 44. Maybe we can do this is a tribute to him. I don't know, but it is spring training, so there's some baseball weaving into that. That was actually not in my script that I read. I'm just going off the cuff here, but we're honored to have these people on the jam session. We've been through a lot. I think it's been a year and about a week since the shutdown, and so God willing, there will be some in-person stuff at the end of the summer, early fall, once vaccinations take place. But these have been just another layer of connectivity that we've thrown together just to keep partners and realtors connected, talking shop, collaborating, and pouring into one another and just building relationship. And I just think it's a great way to kick these off. We've been doing these at least once a week. So that being said, I think when the stay-at-home order lifts and then people get more comfortable gathering in groups of 50, 100, 150 plus, we'll still do these, but just not as often. So if not, we're going to keep jamming. I'm honored to be sharing the screen with these individuals today. So realtors, I'm going to have you introduce yourselves very briefly, then the partners, and then I'm literally just going to get out of the way. So Patty, why don't you go ahead and kick us off if you don't mind.
Sure. Okay. So I'm Patty Cerny, and I kind of grew up in a real estate family. My dad was a realtor with Baird & Warner. He was always, back in the day before there was an MLS and the $1 Million Club. I just remember so much about the joy that he brought to the business, and his business acumen went further than mine. I'm pretty much residential, but Dad was also an investor like his dad. So he bought multi-unit buildings, a lot of them, before the capital gains laws changed. And it's just an honor for me kind of to carry on the tradition. I was telling Andy on our initial meeting that I actually worked some of the same areas my dad did. And hey, Lisa, how are you? And I actually had an experience where I went in with a contingent offer against maybe 4 or 5 other brokers who came in clean with just a mortgage contingency. And I had Patty Graziano Cerny on my card, and the lady goes, I'm going to go with Patty's offer. Her dad sold us the house. And her broker was like, it's contingent. She's like, that's okay. And the rest of them were like, bye. And this was the old days when we all represented the seller. So we were sub-agents. But it's such an honor for me. And seeing our son Joe went into the business, he's going to come back. But watching Kristen bring her advertising acumen and her natural skill set into the family business has been the greatest joy. There's nothing like having a passion for what you do and then sharing that with your family. So I'm not going to talk for 9 minutes, but I do love what we do. Even the hardest days in real estate, to me, I always feel it's a gift. It's a blessing. The friends we've made over the years, the ability to impact someone's life by the way you negotiate for them, by the way you advocate for them. I just never really wanted to do anything else. The other thing is, we had 3 kids in 2 years back in the 80s.
Well, and that's a good segue. So just how long you've been in the industry for, and then your brokerage.
Yeah. So for us, we had Kristen, and then a year and a half later, we had twin boys. And I found that in the beginning, I thought this was kind of fun. I'd kick off a few deals. We'd go to Disney World. And then as the tuition bills grow, especially around, 99, when all 3 of them were going to college, boy, Mom was working hard. So
well, how long you been in the business for then, Patty?
Since 88. I joined in 88. Yeah. Awesome. So it is something that, again, I feel that we are blessed in what we're called to do.
And we're happy to have you. Kristen, go ahead.
So that's Patty is my mom, and we are partners. So she gave you a little bit of an intro for me, but I've been in the business 7 years. Before that, and also with Baird and Warner, obviously, since we're partners. Before that, I did work in advertising for, 8 or 9 years or so. So very happy to be here.
Nicole.
So Nicole Hajdu, work with Dreamtown, and got into the business in 2007 when everybody was getting out of the business. So I was getting into it, everyone was getting out. So it was kind of like baptism by fire. And my dad was a business owner and he did real estate investment on the side, and always kind of pushed me to do real estate because I had a corporate like advertising background and production management, and he thought it was a good mix, and bring my skill sets into one arena to help other people, and I've been doing it since.
Love it. DeVon, go ahead, my friend.
Yeah. Hey, Nicole. Good to see you.
Hi, good to see you.
I actually started at Dreamtown with Nicole, and she was showing me the ropes back in the day. But I'm DeVon Chandler. I'm with Compass. I've been a realtor now since 2014. And prior to real estate, I was in corporate sales.
Has it been that long? 2014? Oh my God.
So I'm Joe Kotoch, also with Compass, and I've been in real estate for about 7 years now.
Beautiful. Yeah, quick intros. So I'll just say this. I'm gonna allow the partners just to have a minute or so, 30 seconds or so to introduce themselves. And I will say, I mean, I get a lot of compliments on the publication and the events, and I'll just tell you right now, I mean, people who know me know I have a really dry sense of humor, and I live pretty light. But I'll tell you right now, this is the 1% of the week where I'm actually serious. I take that back. I do raise my kids semi-seriously, but I want to say, like, Gunderson, George, Luke, I mean, I cannot do what I do without you. I mean, I do my best to keep our businesses plugged in. Like, all of our partners are referred by realtors. At the same time, it's like my goal is to keep them top of mind with just the realtors who are doing the majority of the business in the city. And so I can't do what I do without you from day one. I think Gunderson, I think you were the most tenured. I mean, you actually believed in me when I didn't believe in myself.
Yeah,
I don't know what the hell you were thinking, but thank you.
nobody's gonna ever tell me I've got good judgment or foresight or anything like that. So yeah, 100%.
But no, we appreciate it. And so I'm gonna allow the partners to introduce themselves, and then we're gonna start jamming. So Gunny, why don't you go ahead and go first, George, and then Luke, and then we'll dive into some topics.
Sure. Mike Gunderson. I'm an attorney. I've been practicing in Illinois for about 16 years. And again, master of foresight and judgment. I started a real estate law firm in 2008, which was just a whole bunch of fun. And started doing a lot of distressed work, and that built a good foundation for the work we do now, which is closings, new construction, condo conversion, and tax appeal work, and a little bit of litigation when unfortunately we're forced into it. So yeah, thanks Andy again, as always, for putting this together.
Mr. Kaiser, go ahead, sir.
George Kaiser, Wintrust Mortgage. I've been doing mortgages since 1996, and it's all been with Wintrust, and I've seen Wintrust grow from, a small 4 different mortgage companies, and now we're merging it all into Wintrust Mortgage. So it's been a great run, and that's it. I won't take up too much time.
I'm Luke Weiden with Deljo Heating and Cooling in Chicago here. Been in the residential heating and cooling industry for about 15 years. We primarily focus in the city, residential, light commercial, and I'm also a real estate investor myself. So love these things because I get to pick up some tips and go from there. So.
Yes, sir. Well, that's it. This is the part where I get out of the way. So let's start jamming. I know there's a couple of you who had some great topics, and we were sort of pre-game, and Patty, you had something you know, you were alluding to some things about the nature of appraisal. So why don't you go ahead and kick us off, and then we can ebb and flow from there.
So my question for everybody is kind of what's working for you with appraisals in this crazy market where we're pricing something and the demand is so great that we're ending up with 14 offers and contracts that come in where the buyer is willing to pick up the shortfall on the appraisal, and this one went higher than that one. And so now I have to meet the appraiser, and I feel like, what should I do? Besides a complete rundown of every update that's occurred in this property and every comp I can think of, do I bake cookies? I mean, what the heck? It's a little intimidating. And yes, we can do things like cross off sensitive information and bring the other offers to say, look, this is the value of the property. These offers all came in right around here. But is anybody else feeling a little stressed out meeting appraisers these days?
If I can jump in, I had a multi-unit sale recently in Wicker Park. It was an estate sale. So it's the inheritance of the property had a high value of the property, higher than I felt was appropriate, and we ended up having one contract fall through due to appraisal. We were about $125,000 off, and then subsequently we ended up going under contract for the same exact price, and the next appraiser appraised it at the value. So,
Wow.
I mean, I'm seeing things all over the board, and you know, I've had other deals that have fallen through, and particularly in multi-units where, again, you know, $110,000, $70,000. So one thing that I've been working on, and DeVon and I work together, so we've done for a few of our properties, is we've kind of pursued buyers in multiple offer situations to either agree to waive the appraisal contingency or you know, put up additional money to make up any shortcomings if that's the case. And in several cases, we actually did not take the highest offer. We actually took a offer that was a little lower than the top offer, just because of that added security.
I think there's always a discrepancy, right, on appraisals. I personally was doing a cash out refi a few months ago, and it took me 3 appraisals to get the one I wanted, you know. So I think there's something to be said about some subjectivity when it comes to the appraisals.
Oh, it's totally subjective. It's numbers. I mean, it's unbelievable how they can scramble numbers, 2 different appraisers.
Crazy.
It is amazing. Yeah.
It
Hey,
reminds me of the old BMW saying. I don't know if you guys ever heard this. You always wanted a BMW that was made on Tuesday through Thursday, never on Monday or Friday, because that's when the laborers in Germany would be hungover from drinking. So just goes to show you want to be selective and lucky. Yeah.
Hey, Joe, I have a quick question. So in that situation you had, when you met the 2 different appraisers, did you do anything different, or it was just completely this? I mean,
I kept my fingers crossed, said a prayer, did a blood sacrifice. No, honestly, it was a funny story. I had 2 back-to-back appraisals with the second appraiser back-to-back. He appraised a property in the West Loop that he shorted on a refi for a client of mine. And then he came back at full value on the second one, which I was, you know, through the moon on. But I brought him comps. I was there walking him through the vision of what the property was going to be.
Yeah.
I had basically all the financials to say, this is what this property will be yielding, you know. And so I really tried to make that emphasis because, you know, us agents, we all know, you know, when you look at some of these multi-units, it's not simply this building sold for this, so it's worth that building's worth that. It's, you know, there's financial components, cap rates, and other things that you, I think, have to be able to show. And if you have the right appraiser, you can at least get that through to them.
Hey, George, question for you. Having been around for, I think you said 20 years, has this happened before? Do appraisers usually catch up to, you know, the market, or?
We've seen the market when back in trying to think where you're getting a little it's ahead of itself right now. Like everyone's saying, you're getting these multiple offers. So it is a little ahead of itself. We're having the same problem with construction loans because the cost of construction is just out of control. So the market's got to catch up a little bit, but I think the best thing we do is have some comps ready. I mean, yeah, like you say, I know you mentioned have cookies ready to go. That, if you have comps, that make sure that what our head appraiser has always said, make sure you have comps. You're not trying to dictate value to an appraiser because you don't want to, there's a fine line there. You don't want to upset her or him. Have the comps ready. And I also, if there's been any improvements, because they really don't know that. Well, they can read it in the listing, but really can reconfirm that there's been improvements done since the last time it sold. And, when you hand those comps to them, just say, here's some additional comps that I don't know if you've seen, but I just wanted you to have them so you can do your homework properly. And that's what our head appraiser has suggested in the past when we remember when the market was struggling with value, right? I mean, sometimes, yeah, I mean, you just got to be careful there. That's all I'm saying. That's what you can.
George, you're jogging my memory now too about a conversation I just had recently where we had the choice to close sort of like a speedier close or hold it back more towards like 45, 50 days. And one of the attorneys said, hold it back if it doesn't hurt anyone because it's not going to hurt their rate lock, but it's going to give the market a chance to catch up a little bit.
Yeah.
So that was such a good point. It was like the same thing we just talked about. He's like, let's get as many comps on here as we possibly can instead of like rushing into a 30-day close. So.
Yep. If you think it's out. I mean, yeah, because what happened, obviously, the effective date of an appraisal, you can look at pending listings, what's going on listing wise, but if that hasn't sold, a property can't be, that property can't be part of that appraisal after the inspection date.
Right.
But at the same time, I've seen our appraisal group where they have taken in consideration some sales afterwards, and we might allow for another appraisal to be ordered because of that.
Okay.
But your play, it's a really fine line. Regarding that.
Yeah.
Kristen, you brought up an interesting point, and I'd like to open it up to the group here. But I know for one that the market right now, I mean, talking about having it catch up to with where we are, I'm seeing some crazy numbers. I'm seeing some crazy things. I'm just kind of curious, aside from the appraisal component, what's the craziest thing we're all seeing right now in this marketplace?
Like really increased prices, just like 30,000 over. I just saw another one 40 over. And you know what, sometimes I tell my buyers, like, just wait, just be patient and it'll come back. And a couple of them have come back to us because I think people get to their inspection or they start thinking about it like, oh my God, I just paid $30,000 over list price. Like, what am I doing? Or maybe they don't think it's going to appraise out, or they talk to Aunt Betty and Aunt Betty is saying, hey, this is crazy. Everything that goes up comes down, that kind of thing. Like, don't throw all your money at it. Like, I've been seeing a lot of people like jump in, just trying to see, like, throw in all their money, see what sticks, and then later have cold feet. And it's going to be interesting to see the consequences eventually of this market.
We've been seeing a ton of really, really, really bad games of dominoes where we've got the seller and the buyer is selling and that buyer is buying, and this one's in Tennessee and this one is in Wisconsin, and the interplay between the states is a real problem because you've got different procedures out there. And so you have a lot of people who want to sell to take advantage of a hot market, but then also need to buy. And so what they are doing is setting up some really complicated buy, sell, same day structures. And, they're a recipe for disaster. And, I know nobody wants to pay for stuff to be on a truck or get an Airbnb for 2 weeks, but man, I'm starting to tell people, it's the butterfly effect. Your closing is being directly impacted by X, Y, or Z out of state, and you need to build in a buffer on moving and a lease end. And so right now, because everybody's got something going in the real estate hopper, some of these deals are just crazy, where you've got literally 8 to 10 transactions that can be hampered by one. That's been pretty wild this year.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that. I'm just kind of curious, since you mentioned all these transactions sort of strung along together, and I for one have seen it in a few cases, and it's like the one peg that just holds everything up. Are you finding on the legal side the zoning certs are also becoming such a hassle?
Zoning's a total disaster.
Yeah.
If it's a multi-unit, we're essentially, having the old zoning cert or their old file is worthless at this point. The individual who is mandating the zoning procedure right now, they're looking back to 1954, and if the permits, if it wasn't built, specifically for a multi-unit, and the permits are not there to specifically turn it into a 3 or a 2 or a 4, it's getting a 1, and there's nothing anybody can do about it, and there's no quick solution. They're not taking old certs, they're not taking pictures like they used to. And so if you're doing a listing and they say, it's a 4 unit, I've got 4 rented, you've got to, the attorney's got to unfortunately trace back before you even apply, because if those permits are not there, you're just not getting it. And I've had deals where we do have the permits and they're still taking a month to get resolved. So, there's definitely, it's hard to essentially fight City Hall, as they say, but there are definitely people and some consumer attorneys that I have talked with that are looking at possible litigation based on this change, because effectively, if you were certified as a 4 unit and nothing has changed, how can a zoning department now say no, you're a 1? It's almost, there's some constitutional arguments there about depriving somebody of property when the same organization has previously certified it. So yeah, it's a mess, and the first thing anybody should do on a listing is ideally have a seller hire their counsel at the start to trace back or order that zoning before you even go on the market.
Mhm.
It's $170 plus $100 for a clerk. It's the best money you'll spend, because if you're forced to renegotiate at the table, your client's losing a chunk of money versus knowing up front and saying you can invest in plans, permits, and work, or you can price it with an understanding of this is what's got to happen. But yeah, that's been an absolute nightmare since last fall through current.
I actually had a similar situation like that, and what I've done this twice actually, where we've had 4 units that were zoned 2 units or 3 units in some cases, even with old legal 4 unit certs from when the owners had purchased. And one thing that I have found that's actually been a tool for us is hiring a Matterport specialist to come in, do the virtual tour to showcase the 4 unit building, to show that it's got the 2 egresses, to show the flow, to show everything virtually, because again, in some cases, I mean, I've had a couple record sales on buildings that could have been record failures because the zoning department didn't have their stuff together. And so doing that in conjunction with the attorney has been helpful in my experience in a couple cases. But of course, this seems to be a citywide issue that just continues to be more and more of a nuisance.
Yep.
Interesting.
I got something for the group, kind of switching gears a little bit. Joe and I always talk about, adding value to buyers and, looking for different ways to show them properties. And so We do a good job of, scanning the PLN and top agent network, but I'm curious to know what the other realtors in the group are doing in terms of, finding properties that, are pre-market or off market that, are not on the PLN or not on TAN.
Yeah, and actually, DeVon, this was something I had written down as a note to talk about too, because I wanted everybody's opinion. I've had mixed reviews on this from other agents. We started using Zenlist. Are you guys, everybody using it? So, I think it's great because when you're in this kind of market, you have to get in there so fast. And so we're going through the PLN, having to take screenshots because you can't share it with the client. So right away I jumped on. I was like, oh, this is great. And it's funny because some agents, they're like, well, how did they know about this? Zenlist. And so it's I was just interested if it's working for other people or how you feel about it. I mean, even as a listing agent too, I'm fine with it. But I was just curious too on that note, because that is something we've been doing and our clients love it. I mean, really love it. I would say we just put a deal together because of it, because it popped up so fast for them and we got in the same day on Friday and just put that together. So I was kind of on that same track wondering, because that's a big thing we've been doing to try and get ahead of the game with the private network, because it's not really easy to share anything on the private network. It take more, a few minutes, but in this kind of market, I feel a few minutes is a lot.
And that's changing right now that, you were able, I don't know if it's this week or next week, we're going to be able to start sharing the private listings on MLS.
Good.
I just heard that. Yeah, which will be much, much easier.
Yeah, because I feel like it's so unprofessional, screenshot here. Yeah, it should not be that way.
No, yeah.
So I'm glad to see that they're making that change.
Long overdue.
Definitely.
Maybe we should just go back to books,
Hey, I remember books.
Sorry, that was my one-liner. I'll shut up.
Yeah, I remember those days. Yeah.
I have no idea what you guys are talking about.
So DeVon, because you're younger, we used to do CMAs with these big MLS books, and you would compare that person's home by taking the book and going to the Xerox machine and pressing the seam down to try to get a picture of that house. And before that, in my dad's day, he had a little leather portfolio with listings in there that I can remember him paging through. So even, I think, as we've adapted, even if it was a crummy representation on the PLN, I still think our clients appreciated that we were looking, sometimes twice a day, sometimes Kristen in the morning and me in the evening, and going, hey, look, what just hit the PLN.
Yeah.
But the market,
that's why I think I was bringing up Zenlist, because it's been, our clients have been over the moon for it. Just able to set them up on a search and just get those PLN listings real time has been amazing. So,
and just so you know, they do not include, I will correct me if I'm wrong, they do not include Compass listings, right?
Is that true?
So yes, that is true. And I found that out because I knew of one in the private network, right when we first, and again, this is so new, but right when I first instantly signed up in the very beginning, I noticed so I had to ask them, because I noticed how 2 I wanted in there were Compass and not in there. And so they do not include Compass listings.
Hey,
Or
don't-
small
don't do
boutique
Compass.
brokerages.
All
too.
right, no shots at Compass here.
I know.
No,
You
but
know.
it's just so we
Get
can
it.
go look, so we have
No,
to be
so
more diligent and look.
You can't
Yeah.
use it. You're right, Nicole. You can't use it as the be all end all of anything because
No.
Right.
they're out there, but it has given us a leg up for sure with buyers in certain situations.
And if they're
Yeah.
changing that on the MLS, it's even better. There's no fee for that, and everybody's listings will be in there.
Right.
So.
Yeah. My clients love it too. They say it's addicting. They love it. I've put a couple of deals together just because it's popped up and we've been the first ones to get in there.
Right.
We've also lost a few because we can't get in there. Somebody else has. But it does save, I think, us brokers a lot of time.
Yeah.
you know, because we're not always in front of a computer.
So back to DeVon's point, anything else anyone's doing with buyers to help speed it, to win in these situations? I'd be so curious.
I'll tell you guys something your buyers don't tell you that they kind of squealed us. The one thing I think you guys all probably do a great job of, but I get a lot of freaked out calls, is a great explanation. I feel like this could come from a lender or a realtor, a great explanation on how an appraisal is not really a value of price. I get that question so often about, well, I'm not buying something that's not worth, X, Y, or Z. And that's kind of a real kind of obscure conversation and way to explain it. But I get that question a lot because sometimes, especially first timers, they're afraid or embarrassed and don't want to necessarily spit it out. So I know those conversations are great to have with your buyers, up front, that an appraisal is kind of the market dictates what the market dictates, but an appraisal is something completely different. So I've just had that come up a bunch. So I definitely know that's a great conversation to have before you even go out, especially if it's going to be in a hot area with a ton of offers. They just have to kind of suspend their understanding of the word appraisal. I use the diamond ring example, right? If they bought an engagement ring and the commercial says it'll appraise for double, like, how is that possible? Well, this is somewhat similar. So I try to give them the best kind of, metaphor I can, but I definitely know that would be much appreciated by a lot of those buyers.
So I'll share an interesting one with one of the buyers we had recently. So I had some clients that were trying to purchase a house in Avondale, and it was listed at 840, and my clients eventually went up to 950, but they lost. And
Wow.
and my clients were devastated. They couldn't believe it. They wanted to be first in. We went, I did everything I could to get them in, get them to be tops. So through a little bit of digging, whatever, hard work, however you want to call it, I figured out who the buyer was, and it was another agent. So they're like, what do we do? How do we get this? And I said, well, at this point, there's, this is going to be sort of a out of left field, but I said, let's offer the agent money to assign the contract to you. And I said, how much is this home worth to you? So I offered this agent the very next day after she got it under contract, $25,000 cash to assign the contract. She said no. And then we increased the offer to 50, still said no. And my clients were crushed. But I mean, that's the sort of mentality I think we have to be kind of looking in, is there are no crazy ideas. There are, everything out there right now has to be considered as an option to get your client what they want. Because I mean, clients, with more information, more access to information today than ever before, these are the arguably most intelligent and savvy buyers, in the history of real estate, right? They have Redfin, they have Zillow, they have all these other sites that are telling them what homes are worth, what inventory is on the market, basically, doing the job of us without the understanding or the experience. And so, again, I think, to go back to something DeVon mentioned, we have to be the people that are showing and demonstrating our value by creating, these opportunities that, somebody, doing the armchair search on Zillow's website isn't going to be able to think about. So I think that's something, I mean, I know that's probably a crazy scenario, but, I think that's how we have to be looking. I'm curious, if you guys have that same mentality or not.
Well, I can just say to you that that's really interesting and must have been hard, but we're seeing that same kind of thing where you could go in that much higher and lose. In fact, on the other side, when the offers are coming in, we're seeing, the same old escalation riders, waiving appraisals, saying we'll cover the shortfall and sending proof of funds as is. It's just, I think for sellers, I've almost been evangelical saying, you know, if this is your kind of time to get the house on the market, the demand is so great. And in our area, the houses are all kind of different from each other. We're in the city, but there's a lot of green space. And I think with COVID, people who felt cramped or maybe didn't want to be in congested areas and nobody's wearing a mask and all of that stuff, they're kind of looking at this area. So our inventory is so short that if something comes up, we've got so much demand out there. So, you know, how do you counsel your clients? You look at the numbers. Sometimes I think it's pure instinct, like what to try to help them, ask them what they want to go in at. And to Nicole's point, you know, people could get carried away. I even saw one come in as cash without the clause that said you had the ability to get a mortgage just to win, and then come back the next day and say, hey, we met with our lender and the sellers. And I said, what? You know, because honestly, I think it's almost getting to win at all costs. It's getting really hard on the buyers. And to Nicole's point, again, you know, they could wake up and say, what the heck have I just done? You know, I paid 50 grand more than that place is worth. But for the most part, like Kristen was saying, we have young couples or we have buyers that really want that house. And, you know, it's interesting. The rates are so low and they just went up a teeny bit. And it seemed like it added gasoline to the fire. I don't know if other people are seeing, buyers are just, I mean, I just put one in the PLN. I've had 8 brokers call and repeatedly text or call or email, when can we get in? When can we get in? So I think it's a wonderful time for sellers, but I am curious as to how people are counseling their buyers. It hurts to lose time after time. So if anybody has anything to share. And also, quick question on the rates. Are they're like what, in the 3s now? Which makes me laugh. That would make anyone nervous. Bill and I bought our house in 1988 and we got 11% and 0 points. And we were like, hallelujah, we got a great rate. So the fact that it could make you nervous that they went from the 2s to the 3s is interesting. But I also wanted to kind of ask George how he feels this is going to play out this year, knowing you don't have a crystal ball.
Are you talking about rates?
Uh-huh.
Where they're going to go?
Yeah.
Well, no one has a crystal ball, that's for sure. I believe what I'm reading is, you know, the Fed is saying, believing that there's not going to be inflation because they believe unemployment is still going to remain high through the rest of the year. The market's not saying that right now. The bond market, obviously, you've seen rates go up. There's rumors, or you know, they're saying that that the Fed can come in and do what they call a twist. They can start buying on the lower end and drive the rates back down. And if they go up any further, they don't want the housing market to be hurt. So while more inventory comes on, so I'm thinking rates will probably, what I'm reading is rates will probably stay where they are right now, in the low 3s.
Okay.
Will not go, if they go back down to where they were, that means there's problems. So we don't want that. So that's, you know, that's today, right? What I'm reading, and 2 days from now, it can be totally different, but that's kind of what they've said right now. That's what we're saying, and what our people are saying too. Our people, and they're looking at the markets right now.
I've got a question for the realtors. What neighborhoods are you seeing these 50, 100,000 over asking price? I need to know if I need to sell today.
Where are you?
Good question, man.
You interested in selling?
Yeah.
Your home is worth?
If only we knew anybody who could help you, Luke.
Right?
I would say that we have seen this we're kind of Northwest Siders, but we've seen this in Rogers Park, Portage Park, Edison Park. Saguenash and Edgebrook are a little lighter in inventory. I don't know if that's because it's a more, I don't know, people stay there until they go to the home kind of area. But we are so light with inventory on the northwest side. I think, to give you an example, there was a ranch that came up at $399. It closed at $450. It needed work. The floors were shot. It had a big lot, but you know, I was kind of talking to an appraiser about this too. We had one in Peterson Park that was on the park. It was a total fixer-upper. It went, Kristen, I think we listed it at $389 and it closed at $430. There were so many offers, but I had to tell the appraiser, and maybe he didn't care, because he said, why are so many things selling in the PLN? Because we went live and just let the market ride for these folks. The lady went into a nursing home and this was the money she needed. So we went live on the ML, and I had to kind of talk to the appraiser and say, listen, there's an intangible to have in your backyard right on the park there, and you can see the soccer fields. And I would say it's a general thing. I mean, I don't know, up around here.
Yeah, and because we are a northwest side, but I mean, we do the North Shore too. And even with some folks I'm working on in the North Shore, those homes are going on, I mean, even in the way upper brackets and getting 7 offers. I mean, it really is like all price ranges. And so I think, to Patty's point before, what we've been trying to do is call up clients who have ever talked about selling, or people who were past clients, and just say, you know, we need inventory. We don't have enough places to put our buyers. If you've ever thought about selling, you know, now is golden opportunity, because as a seller, this is really the time. And if we can get more inventory out there, you know, hopefully that will help.
Right.
That's a great idea.
So, I mean, that is something we've been trying to focus on, just making sure that we're staying in touch with people who maybe called us a few years ago and decided not to sell, or we know bought a certain amount of years ago, and just saying, we've never seen anything like this. And, you know, if you even have an inkling of selling, don't wait, just do it.
Yeah, now's the time.
And I think COVID opened it up, that you're not limited by commute anymore. So it's carpe diem. If these people decide to sell next year, I don't have a crystal ball either, but I can tell them that right now, they'll make a huge splash on the market. I mean, we put stuff in the PLN, and we do a lot to Nicole's question. Kristen especially does a lot of marketing. So maybe all of those things just, again, fan the flames higher, but we're seeing incredible demand on anything that goes in. So.
That's true. In that PLN, I just put one in, and I've probably gotten over 25 calls on it. People just chomping at the bit.
And Luke, to your question, I think, I won't say it's area specific in terms of where. I think it's more buyer specific and property specific. I mean, like, most younger buyers are looking for, you know, the open concept and updated places to where when they move in, they don't have to lift a finger. So I think that for us, at least, those properties that, you know, have an area for additional workspace for kids, or for someone to work from home with an updated open kitchen to living room ratio, like, those are the ones that we're seeing, you know, fly off the shelf quick and go for over list price.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think the more updated it is, the more of that like frenzy happens, especially because that would be like one of the ones we just had that went so far over, we just couldn't even believe it. So. But that's to your point, that one had everything. It had the open concept, it had, and those are, especially in Saguenash, so much fewer and further between. So.
Right, they got remodels.
Yeah.
Hey, hold on real quick.
So if a property is, if you see a house that's been listed and it's still not selling, it's got to be really stinky then, right?
No, I would adjust the price. I think if you're not selling in this market, we gotta
Yeah.
reframe.
Right.
In this market where fish are jumping out of the water into your net,
Yeah.
your price is off. I
That's
mean,
okay.
you have to hit the sweet spot. I mean, honestly, again, I think it almost comes into instinct where you're looking at maybe appreciation rates over the years. And then you think, in this market, maybe we could try another 10, but you want to be the best option on the market, George, because that's what drives those buyers to come and compete against each other. So if you're way, way over, I don't think any market is really going to help you.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think going back to someone made the point about that just reminded me when you're talking about being the best, option out there. I think no matter what, if you are priced too high and you miss your market, you're not even getting the right people in there. So someone's always going to see something better. If they're seeing something in your price range and you're just too high, it's not going to create that frenzy, even in this great market, no matter what.
Mhm. You're kind of missing that window then.
Yeah.
You have to really reframe it.
Hey, real quick, we have a quick pause. And I just cut someone off, which I apologize, but let me get a quick screenshot of everybody. Everybody smile on through. And when you see, don't be like my children and smile for like 2 seconds and then stop. So that is supposed to make you smile. So when we go into the photo, you hold it for a little longer. See, that was strategic. But when you see me stop smiling, then you stop smiling. Okay, so ready, set, 1, 2, 3, go. And we're gonna do one more for good measure. 1.
Jesus Christ.
I know, you gotta hold it for a long time. Your cheeks are gonna hurt. All right, 1, 2, 3.
Jeez.
All right, that's cool. Who did I cut off? My bad.
I had a quick question, actually, if I could just jump in. Actually, it's related to. I'd like to ask it to Luke specifically. So, related to the kind of HVAC situation right now, we're seeing these constant. Everybody needs more. More space. They want more bedrooms, more house, whatever. And I know I think for most of the buyers who are buying up in size, they're not experienced buyers. So they all think of the HVAC as sort of the big scary monster in the house that, is the potential linchpin to killing a deal if the mechanicals, aren't up to date or aren't current. My 2 questions for you. And I always try to tell clients this, whether they're getting ready to sell or buying, it's always important, I feel like, to service the machines every year. And then on top of it, I feel like, and I could be wrong, but you might be able to help us. It feels like the pricing is slightly different in the city versus the suburbs. Anything to that?
Sure. Yeah. Obviously, you servicing equipment is just like changing the oil in your car. If you can provide a history of service, you can prove that equipment's going to last longer. That's a definite. Now, the pricing compared to the city versus to the suburbs, definitely an increase, because the further we get downtown, the more difficult the installations become. So, like, for example, we do a lot of work on Lakeshore Drive. We charge a premium on Lakeshore Drive just because it takes 45 minutes to go get a tool and go back up to your job site. So and as you guys know, the farther we get downtown, the more crammed equipment is, and it makes it more challenging. So it's not like being up in the North Shore where I can pull up into some driveway, unload my stuff. I got no steps. I got no doormen to deal with. So yeah, there is definitely a discrepancy in between the city and the suburbs. Now, when we get out here, like in the Saguenay area where where our office is, that's a little easier, right? But yeah, the further you get downtown, the more challenging the installations are going to be. You know, some buildings, we go up to the roof and there's 200 air conditioners and none of them are labeled. It might take an hour just to figure out which one we're working on. So, you know, there is a lot to be said about that, but yeah, definitely, we provide all our customers with a track record of history of service and maintenance when they're selling their homes. So I think that goes a long way for some people to, you know, peace of mind to know that their equipment's going to last longer, and that is proven to increase the life of the equipment, but only improve your efficiencies too. So lower your utility bills and all that stuff. Hopefully that answers your question, Joe.
No, that's really helpful. Thank you.
And I'll also add that there's also a big disparity between entry-level equipment and high-end equipment. Now, 20 years ago, the technology, there wasn't a big difference, but now you can buy a $10,000 system, you could buy a $25,000 system just on the equipment you're purchasing.
So what are you telling people is the shelf life on these? Because I always have my first time home buyer guidelines of, you know, 7 to 15 years, depending on the hot water tank, you know, 15, 20 years, maybe AC, and 20, 25 years on a furnace. What do you find is sort of appropriate? And I understand there can be outliers there.
Yeah, exactly. So on a hot water tank in the city, it's definitely about 7-8 years. Just because of the type of water that we're dealing with. You can go in different parts of the country, it might last 3 years, 10 years, but in the city, it's about 7-8 years on a water heater. In equipment, there's a reason why these manufacturers have a 10-year parts warranty, because they've done extensive studies, and about 10 years, you start seeing really aggressive repairs come out if your maintenance isn't done properly. But at Deljo, we have our track record is about 15 years with our customers. We track it because we've been around long enough to know and have the data to support it. So we tell our customers 15 years on a furnace, 15 years air conditioner, but that's not to be said that people are constantly upgrading because of efficiency improvements and technology. So that 15 years from now, what the system you have now could be totally obsolete, even though you could probably run it for a few years without having any problems. So I personally, I bought a new construction condo 2.5 years ago, and 6 months into it, I took the equipment out.
What?
Yeah, because it was, you know, these builders put base equipment in. I wanted super comfortable and super high end and a lot of technology. So it came out in 6 months, it was out. So, and now what we're finding is that now that people are home more and more, they get to experience the equipment more than they did in the past. Before, people came home, ate dinner, went to bed. Now they're home all day long. So we are super busy. We have been for the past year because people are just upgrading because they're on a Zoom meeting like this and their furnace is right behind them and it's loud. You know, they never experienced that 2 years ago. So there's a lot to be said about upgrading equipment for comfort and efficiency.
Yeah.
Hopefully that answers your question, Joe.
No, that's great. Good to hear. I feel like that's just one of those, you know, sort of far out to sea questions that, you know, again, every agent says something different. Every buyer has no idea. And, you know, when we get the chance to talk to a specialist like yourself, it's just nice to kind of hear it, you know, from your lips.
Thank you.
Well, we are about 5 minutes out. So I don't know, really want to go around the horn, but I guess we can. What's maybe like one or two entering spring market? I mean, even though, I mean, you could make the argument the spring market happened in January, but for conversation's sake, what is maybe one or two action steps that, like, you know, after you not disconnect from this Zoom, but like over the next 2 weeks, you think of like between now and like mid-April-ish, what are like maybe one or two action steps? Like what are realtors going to be focusing on over the next 2-3 weeks? Like what's your main, hey, this is what I'm going to be doing to reap the harvest?
I'll kick us off.
Yeah.
Also, I have to let the dog out, so I have to jump off. So I'd say, Joe and I talk about this every week, just being creative around finding properties for your buyers. So I'm buyer heavy. So one thing that we're doing is, semi door knocking. So basically going to, specific areas and saying, hey, I got a buyer who, missed out on a property that we just listed, that went under contract. They're ready to write tomorrow. Have you thought about selling? What's your price?
I love it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I love the hustle. And we don't have to get to everybody, but I mean, I just figured that'd be a good, I'd rather throw that out there than cutting somebody off mid-sentence. I want to be respectful.
It feels good to hear DeVon say that, because I know we've talked about it. a fair amount.
That's what he has. That's what he has in his script, like right next to his screen. He's not really going to do that. I'm
right.
kidding. I'm kidding.
That's right. That's right.
Kidding.
Like, have you done this, DeVon? No.
Put on the spot.
I think for us, and I sort of said it before, I mean, we are really focusing on getting folks who've kind of been on the fence to list, because as Patty said, and as Andy just said, we are trying to reap the benefits of this market for anyone who's been thinking about it. So I know that's really, truly our focus, at least. And Mom, you can jump in too and correct me, but
No, you're dead on. And I think here's the thing, we all have clients that we've worked with who are comfortable and happy recommending us. Reach out to everybody, your past clients, and say, hey, I'm here for you if you need a recommendation for an HVAC guy, if you need a painter, whatever your needs are. And hey, by the way, this is like the best sellers market in history. If you or your family know of anyone who's thinking of making a move, we'd be honored if you'd give them our name. And I think that's what I'm going to do, Andy. I'm going to just reach out to all our past clients and kind of give them the good news and see if we can be of help. Because again, just to wrap up, I feel very grateful for the clients and the friendships, and we try to stay connected. If they need a recommendation for an attorney or for an HVAC or to refinance, we want to be there. So
on that note, just to tack onto that, Patty, and I've told this to a lot of the realtors I work with, if you're looking for an easy touch to past clients that isn't, daylight savings time, which in my opinion is just the worst. But if you have clients, if you deal in the city a lot, don't forget, we all get reassessed this year. So remind your clients that looks like a solicitation in the mail. It looks like junk mail. Make sure they look at it, and then at least at a minimum, make sure that they haven't, especially if they've purchased in the last couple of years, that they haven't been overtaxed, because simply appealing with your closing statement will get it reset. So it's a great touch for agents while everybody's super busy in this market. Don't forget to remind old clients to keep their eyes open for that, and at a minimum, make sure it isn't wildly inaccurate, because they only get one shot this year to prevent that from being automatic next summer. They'll have a specific, window to appeal if they want to. But if they miss that out this year, they're locked into whatever the county decides. So remind your old clients, and they'll thank you for remembering that for them.
Good point.
yeah,
The assessment's good. Even though I like reaching out to people to remind them to change their clock, even though it changes itself. Right. It's just me though. But no, I think we can wrap up with that. I want to be respectful of everybody's time. So I'm going to cut the live feed in 3, 2. Okay. Hey, everybody. Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks for diving in and just engaging. And you know the drill. If you want to get on another one of these, we calendar these out usually about 7-8 weeks. So if you want to get on another one, maybe shuffle the deck, different realtors partners on, reach out, let me know. Have a blessed, productive day, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, everyone.
so much.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
See you.
Appreciate you.
Bye-bye.
Adios.